It's my great pleasure, my great honor to ask Marc Breslaw to come up and deliver the Dvar Torah. Over there, you get center stage.
Shabbat Shalom. Our Parsha this week represents a crossroads in our Torah narrative. It addresses many enigmatic ideas, but perhaps as its core, the Parsha asks, who made you the boss? Clear answers are initially evasive, perhaps ever more so because of the times with which we find ourselves living today. But in one Parsha, we grapple with Moses' response to rebellion, power sharing, authority, and its legitimacy. At the same time, we are thrust into a nation that has been informed that they are stuck physically, emotionally, and psychologically in a desert wasteland without hope of deliverance in their lifetimes. Already then, Am Yisrael was thrusting its shoulders back, throwing its hands into the faces of its leaders, and asking defiantly, who made you the boss? In discussing this talk with one of my sons last week, he asked me what I expected from people in a quagmire with only distant hope of a better tomorrow, and led by a misunderstood eccentric. We have a world history in which monarchies last centuries, in which despite good or bad, and usually bad, czars or presidents, Russia has always had a strong man, and less often a strong woman. And England has its kings and queens since before Robin Hood, with the exception of an 11-year Cromwell period. Dynastic rule has a lengthy shelf life in much of the world. But Russia's 1917 revolution and the French Revolution needed a long, slow boil to confront the question, who made you the boss? But what got into us so early in our history that has more than once questioning suspiciously and cynically, who made you the boss? We knew not to trust temporal rulers, but did we really learn this from our own people? Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points out that Moses' greatest strength was also his greatest weakness. His anger at injustice singled him out as a leader, but he allowed that anger to become personal against the people he was leading. According to Rambam, taking personal offense instead of listening to the people caused him to forfeit his ticket to enter the Promised Land. A man named Ronald Heifetz is one of our foremost authorities on the practice of leadership. He is the founder of the Center for Public Leadership at the Harvard Kennedy School in Cambridge, Mass. He wrote in 2002, when you take attacks personally, you unwittingly conspire in one of the common ways you can be taken out of action. You make yourself the issue. He writes further, receiving anger is a sacred task. Taking the heat with grace communicates respect for the pains of change. I think that is a powerful message, but to stop exploring this Parsha now is to leave half the story untold. Were the situation only about defiance in the face of rebellion, we would only know a little about Moses' weaknesses. We must also look to the adversaries, Korach, Abiram, and Datan. Abiram and Datan were first cousins of Aaron and Moses, and I will forever remember Datan as Edward G. Robinson, thanks to Paramount Pictures and Cecil B. DeMille. Their interest in diluting Moses' authority stemmed not from the desire for regime change, but to the wish to undermine their cousin and his vision and conviction that brought the nation into the desert. Theirs was arguably not the purest motivation, but a manifestation of their belief that the righteous and principled Moses was out of his mind. What prompted Korach, Abiram, and Datan to summon 250 men and rebel at that point? They wanted a larger, more diverse priesthood. Moses was defiant, telling them that format wasn't in God's specs about how to build the Jewish people. James DeFranzo, who is an emeritus professor of sociology at the University of Connecticut, specialized in analyzing the boiling points that foment revolution. He identified mass frustration, dissident elites, powerful unifying motivations, severe crisis, paralyzing state administrative powers, and finally, a permissive or tolerant world in which other nations don't or can't intervene. Does that sound familiar? All of these critical factors were in place in Sinai. In addition to mass frustration, Moses was facing national despondency and sometimes his own. Remember, despite his commitment to Joseph, his leadership, and his direct line to the Almighty, many considered him to be outside the box. At the very least, the Bernie Sanders of the crowd. His dissident elites, led by Korach, Abiram, and Datan, were demanding radical change, power sharing, and the establishment of a theocracy that included them. According to some commentaries, Korach was accusing Moses of hogging the divine presence. In the meantime, Moses was taking these challenges personally rather than dealing with them as a true leader. The resolution of this crisis was not modern day. Let me share with you a lesson from geology. The topography of Sinai is such that it is extraordinarily prone to sinkholes, a phenomenon seen throughout the world. For example, Cherveno Jezero, or Red Lake in Bosnia, is a sinkhole that is 1,740 feet at a minimum. The full depth has yet to be determined. After Aaron demonstrates the miracle of his staff and the almonds that sprouted from it, his holiness and that of Moses is reascertained, and the earth between Korach's, Abiram's, and Datan's feet and that of their families opens up and swallows them in a giant sinkhole. Parenthetically, Washington, D.C. does not have sinkholes. The lesson, Moses' instructions weren't to build a democracy. They were to be the CEO of a national exodus. His suppression of Korach's insurrection was part of his mission. When considering the motivation and jealousy behind the leaders of the insurrection, Moses was able to definitively answer the question, who made you the boss? In this case, he wasn't pointing to himself. He was looking upwards. Shabbat Shalom.